Here we go. Well, welcome everybody. Friday of our first week back, and thank you very much for attending. My name is Alistair Tulloch. I am the PowerSchool Provincial Pedagogy Lead, and with me I have my partner in crime, Lindsay McDonald. Lindsay, if you can say hi and give them a little rundown of yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. I work mostly with the SIS specialist, but along with Alistair and the pedagogy team as well, based out of the Fredericton at the Department of Education.
Excellent. We're here looking today at the new attendance, some new attendance procedures, but also revisiting some of the ones that we have in place. But we want to just go over them to make sure that everyone's still following the same procedures. As we'll back up here and just go over a little bit of background information. As you know, the 10-year ed plan came out, and the 10-year ed plan has a number of measures that they're checking for a wide range of things. And starting in September, we have a new attendance measure. There's no baseline data for it at present, and we're now looking at baseline data for attendance. So over the last year, the data and accountability supervisors and the SIS specialists, Lindsay, Jean-Guy, Doucet, myself, the pedagogy leads, we consulted with many people, and we looked at all things attendance in PowerSchool and PowerTeacher, and we produced a number of documents to put everybody on the same path to make sure that we're doing it all the same way so that we can provide accurate and reliable attendance data for schools primarily so they can help students that may be becoming chronically absent, for the district to see how they're doing on the whole, and also for the 10-year plan because the province is going to be reporting on percent of absence. So if we're doing percent of absence, what we're looking at is the total number of days absent divided by the total number of days present. Obviously, that's just a very simplified formula, but in that means we now have to start clearly identifying when students are in the building, out of the building, present or not present, because all of those are going to impact on that formula, which will change the actual percentage number. So there is a brand new data standard for attendance. You can see it came out on July 1st. And the data standard, the top items didn't change that much. A few of the attendance codes did change. So we have a new one now called school programming. And school programming is a little broader in definition. Before, we used to have a guidance, and we had a co-op like at the high school level. But now we're saying that basically if a student is at school but they're not in a class, then you would actually use the school programming. So at the high school level, if the students are attending to the workplace, we would use school programming. If a student has an appointment with the guidance counselor or the office, or perhaps they are going to some interventions with the resource department, they could have programming like occupational therapy with their PLP, and they could be having outside support services with integrated service delivery. So all of these things would fall under school programming. A little note that all the codes are for K through 12. So high schools typically don't have the AM and PM codes because they take attendance by each class, known as meeting attendance. And in our K-8 world, we have three of them. The top one being an all day, and the other two for being part of the morning, part of the afternoon. Many of the codes are still the same. We had before attendance not required, and we're going to be looking at using attendance not required more often to account for students that are not required to be in the building for a particular time, because if we think about that formula of absences divided by presence, or some variation of that. If students don't need to be in the building, but we assume that their default is present, that's going to change the numbers, and therefore the percent number will be different in the end. So we'll go over when we would like you to use the attendance not required. School activity, we're also going to be looking at that as well too, to make sure. So these would be activities in your building that are outside of sports teams. The school activity could be the drama club, could be band. It could be a school-sponsored activity where presentations come in and students are not attending classes, but they're actually still in the building doing something as opposed to maybe doing math. Many of these other codes are all the same. They haven't changed. And other than the wording on this code right here, we now have other informed instead of other excused absence. So the key being around the word informed. When somebody tells us where a child is, we say we now know we are informed. We had some problems with some interpretation on using the excused, where some people may not feel that a reason provided by a parent is actually excusable, so they said, well, I'm going to put that under unexcused, and that's not the intent. The unexplained absence right here is when we do not know where a child is. Any questions about our data standard, which I have provided for you in this link invite? All good? All right. So I'm going to divide today's presentation up into two portions. One of them is going to be for the items that we already do, and we just like to revisit them to make sure that everyone's still doing it the right way. And the second half will be the things that are new. If there's any questions that pop up along the way, please do not hesitate to type your question in the window. Lindsay is monitoring the window, so she'll interrupt me as it pertains to what we're talking about here. Or maybe you just want to say, could you please show me that again? We'll just do it again. We're here to help you out. Okay, so the first thing I'd like to take a look at is the school calendar. Starting on the start page, under setup, we hit schools, and we go to the calendaring section, and we click on school calendar. So this would be an example of what a month that's set up in your calendar that would have all days in session. And a few items I want to point out. You have to make sure that you have the correct day that lines up with the correct day in the week. You may have an A, B, C, D type of drop down here. That's fine. This drives the student's matrix, so we know what subjects are being taught for a kid on a particular day. If you turn these around, then the matrix isn't going to work properly. Some schools have more than one bell schedule. This school, I'm in the training environment, has just your regular school day. And when school is in session, which means the doors are open for learning, then we make sure that the button here is checked off. When school is open, we say that membership value is a 1. Now we discovered that just in talking with people, we saw variations on what was entered being in here. We had some people that were putting in 0.5 when it was a half day of school. We don't have to change the values here because our attendance codes actually have values attached to them. So if it's a half day absence, for example, it would be worth 0.5, and that 0.5 is actually multiplied by the membership value to give a half day of absence. Our report card counts the absences and reports absences on the report card. In New Brunswick, we do not use the tracks in session feature. We just have all our tracks are turned on, so we just leave them on all the time, just like this. Another thing that was noted was when it was on a half day, we had some people that left this as a 1, but then they clicked these off. thinking that these kind of represented the periods within their day. And I could certainly see why that could be interpreted that way, but the tracking feature is a different function that we do not use in New Brunswick. So you can leave them on all the time. The last two columns over here, the type and the note, these do not impact any of the attendance reports, and they also do not impact the attendance on the report card. So you could have nothing in here and it's not going to change anything. However, we do recommend that you use the drop downs that are in here, particularly for things like, say, infrastructure. Let's say your school was closed for infrastructure like this. This is what it would look like that. And you could actually type in here what the problem was. And then you would have a note of why the school was not in session. It was an infrastructure problem, and furnace was broken. And then there would just be a record for your own. I'm not going to save this just because it's just as an example. Is everybody okay with the calendar? Are there any questions about the calendar? Okay. The next item would be for changing attendance for individual students. When we have, this would be the phone call, this would be the drop-off, this would be the pickup, this could be social services comes into your building and they're having an appointment with a child. Maybe they're taking them off-site. This could be suspension. So this would be when you're looking at an individual child. So let's take this child. This is just a training environment, folks, so these are not real names. So we've had Marty's father has called in and said that Marty's not going to be in for the day. So you look up Marty on the start page, and then you click on attendance, and you click on the day of the week, whatever day it was. Let's say it's here in October. You put in whatever value that matches what the parent is saying. Maybe Marty's away today because of a trip that the family has to take. So we've got informed absence, other informed absence right here. I'm going to be out for the day. Comment. And we're recommending that everybody put their initials after it. In small schools, it's not so bad. It's fairly straightforward who's probably putting the information in. But in large schools, it's good to know where the information came in and who actually recorded it. We do not use these fields down here at the bottom. So from there, you can submit it. And you can see there's the code and that on the day that it's on. If it was for a suspension, for a 5-day suspension, let's say Marty had a discipline problem and action needed to be taken, you can click on the meeting attendance, click on the date range, and you could have an out-of-school suspension. And once you've done the drop down, you can just come right across here and put that in. You know, a comment could go in here, out of school for 5 days or whatever the case may be, but I wouldn't recommend you put any details in here around suspension. Not everybody needs to know. The code itself, OS, tells that the child is out. But if you do put one in, make sure, whatever the comment may be, then make sure you put your initials after it. One of the things I like to do on this page is to highlight the comment that you've typed. Press OK because it doesn't transfer over, so you have to type it every time. So I find it goes a little faster if I can just cut and paste it when I put it in. And then you would go to the bottom of the page and you would submit it down here. And you can see the out-of-school suspension right there for the 5 days. All right, so those are the individual student ones. And for whatever reason it is and wherever the information comes, you just search the student on the start page and set it on their attendance page. One of the ones that we'd really like to address closely is for attendance for a supply teacher. The vast majority of our schools in the province use the piece of paper down to the office method, where the supply teacher will write on a piece of paper who is absent, or if a class is all present, then the note would just say all present. We're asking two things. One is, if everything is present, we would still want you to go in, still find the teacher. I think, I don't know if Chrissy has one. Yeah, Chrissy has one. So we can come in here and you click on the chair. And even though the students are all present, just submit it anyway. And then when you run the teacher submission status page, right here, we can see that under Chrissy's name, you can see that it's actually in orange. And if you click on it, we can see that attendance was taken for homeroom.
So we have a question from a K-12 school. Do I use daily for K-5 and meeting for 6-12? And it is an Anglophone West school.
Okay, so the answer to the question, Kelly, is if you're typically, and I don't know, we'll have to look at your school maybe specifically, but typically they use daily attendance for K-8. And then they use meeting attendance for 9-12. But we do have some schools around the province that have 6-12, or even middle school that are doing meeting attendance for the middle school. So we'll have to take a look at your school specifically. So the session that we're showing you here right now is for meeting attendance. Daily attendance. So it would just be for homeroom. But if it was for a meeting attendance school, so I'll use Chrissy again as an example. So let's just switch our hat here for a second, and we're going to go to pretending you're like a meeting school. If I go into Chrissy, and the piece of paper now comes in for math, so you can come in here and we can submit this for math. And if we then go run the Power Teacher attendance report, and if we click on Chrissy's name, you'll now see that it's been taken for both. So I'm not sure what the configuration is for your school, but typically it's daily K-8. But some schools have their middle schools taking attendance the same way as their high school. Does that answer your question? We'll have to take a look at your school specifically. So which brings me to my next point. Depending on what your school is tracking for attendance, let's assume for a second that in Chrissy's school here at EECD K-8, the school is only tracking homeroom. All you're tracking is homeroom. You really don't care about these other ones here. You want to know that when the attendance is submitted, like here for me, it has turned green right away, and you don't have to worry about clicking on the box for the teacher and discovering which ones have been submitted. So if I look at O'Shea, you can see no attendance has been submitted. So you can buzz down to O'Shea's room and say, I need you to take your attendance. The safe arrival process is going to start soon. So let's take a look at Chrissy's. To get rid of these other two subjects, this is how you do it. Let's do that. We'll do the math first, okay? So you go to teacher schedules, you go to the teacher, you click on the section number, so right here. And if you scroll down the screen, this is the edit section. This is where you were when you're creating sections. So when you create your sections in the future, you would exclude from attendance. Now, this does not mean the teacher can't take attendance anymore in their classroom. They can still have access to taking attendance in their classroom. However, you will now notice that the submission status report now only shows language arts. Language arts still needs to be changed. So we've got a problem here with it the way it looks right now. So you'd have to go into English language arts and exclude that from this count too. Now, if your school is the other way around, that you're doing meeting attendance, you would turn off the homeroom and keep all the other ones turned on, so you could see how attendance was being done throughout the day. So if your school was tracking each class during the day, the teacher will be yellow like this all day until the end of the day. And if they're not green by the end of the day, like you see here's Leo. If they're not green like Leo and me right here, then you know the teacher hasn't taken attendance for one of those periods, and you can get on the intercom and say, I need you to take attendance for your last period. You haven't done it yet. And then you know the submission status is accurate. Are there any questions? Okay, so those are the regular things that we just wanted to revisit. I'll just recap them. Making sure your calendar is set correctly. You should make sure your calendar, you should visit your calendar at 3 particular times. One of them is at the beginning of a month, the end of the month, and the end of the term. So this is right before report card time. You want to make sure that your in-session days are accurate. It's also important that you actually adjust your calendar 24 hours before teachers start printing off their report cards. And the reason for that is this. The information that's in the calendar setup sits in a table. That table is updated and refreshed in the system overnight. When that updates and refreshes, it pushes the information that's in that table to other tables. If teachers print it on the day that you change the calendar setup, it will not capture the changes that you have made. You have to have your calendar set the day before teachers start printing. Or no changes done if they are printing, or tell them you need to print them again because there was a mistake with attendance. Okay, the other thing is individual students. Making sure that you search them on the start page and adjust it in their classroom only, or in their attendance only. Supply teachers, whether the students are all present or whether there's a single student absent, make sure you go in through the teacher schedules and submit it by using the chair rather than going to find the individual student. We want to know that the attendance has been submitted. If a classroom has everybody present and you don't do anything with the submission, the attendance will still be captured as present for all children, which is correct. However, the status of it actually being deliberately submitted is not, just like on the screen that we're looking here. So we want to know that when we go back in time, that every screen should be green, so we can say the data is reliable because we submitted it for every section that needed to be submitted for. And the last thing we looked at was how to exclude your section to count or not count on this screen right here, so that your information that you see is accurate and as streamlined as possible. Any other questions until we move into the next section? Okay, so the next section we're going to take a look now are the new things that we're implementing to kind of tighten up things so we have better data. So if we take the student, what we're looking at is half days. So this would be when you know the building is going to be closed in the afternoon, say for parent-teacher interviews. So if we take Victoria, and Victoria's grandmother called in because Victoria lives with her grandmother, and she says that Victoria is not coming in today. We would like, and we're asking teachers to do this as well too. Now I understand in the East, teachers are only going to have access to 2 codes. They're going to have unexplained absence and they're going to have present. And then the office is going to be taking care of the details after that. But in the other districts, teachers will have access to some drop downs here like this. And if teachers and the office, if it's a half day of school, we're asking you to put in only the AM code. Because if you put in the full day code, like illness like this, it's actually going to count for a half day more of absence than school was actually open for. So the report card will actually say 1 day of absence for this, but school was actually only open for half a day. Again, we're trying to capture the total absences versus the total time required. So if school's only open for half a day, we should only put them out for half a day like this for in the morning. And then a comment. And then your initials. illness AM. We do not adjust the calendar on half days. We leave the calendar to be set for a membership value of 1. And again, the code that is being used will actually put the child absent for a half day. And we don't have to worry about the present kids because the report card counts absences, not presents. Any questions? Partial day programming. Partial day programming would be for a student.
You're doing a good job explaining.
It's clear, I hope. Okay, let's take. Okay. Let's take Miranda. So Miranda is being placed on a behavior plan, and part of that plan requires that she only comes to school for partial time. So to adjust her calendar, her attendance, again, we want to capture when she's required to be here and when she's not required to be here. So we would look at the meeting, and we would click the week that's being affected, and we're saying she's only going to come to school in the mornings. So this is the plan you've worked out with the parents, and we're saying attendance is not required in the PM. So we would just come along and we would just click attendance not required in the PM, meaning she comes to school in the morning. Once that's been submitted, the teacher will see this code right here for the 5 days. It's good to put a comment in here that the teacher will see. Again, highlight it and copy it, Control C, and then Control P or Control V, and it will paste it in, and then you'll have those comments all the way across. Let's say you've got it entered in. The teacher will no longer be able to edit this because it will be hard-coded in PowerTeacher, and then a phone call comes into the office, or Miranda's not there that day. The teacher could send down a note. Remember, the kid's is only coming in the morning, so if they are if they didn't show up, it would not be. As soon as I can find the code, it's a big list. There it is. It would not be unexplained absence right here, because that would mean the kid was supposed to be there all day. This would be unexplained absence AM until we get a code, or like a call from the parents or whatever, because the child's not even required to be there in the afternoon. We recommend that you don't do this for more than a week at a time, because if you blast it for all of T1 all the way through, and Miranda changes her behavior and she starts coming to school on a more regular basis, all this data will have to be removed by EECD, and then you'd have to go back and put it all in for whatever the new one is. So we recommend you do it just once a week.
And Alistair, Todd has a question,
Yep.
A good question. If the teacher receives a note indicating a student will be absent on multiple days, can they change or update attendance themselves?
Todd, you're in East. In East, no, because they're only allowing 2 codes because of the new school messenger. So if a teacher receives the note, then the note will have to go down to the office, and then the AA will be able to fix it. The only 2 codes teachers have would be the unexplained absence and the present.
And also, once the admin on the PowerSchool admin side has entered attendance, then it cannot be updated through PowerTeacher.
Right, yes, that's right. So Todd, to answer your question for other schools, teachers can put it in if they get a note, unless, exactly as Lindsay has said, if the office has entered it or you have entered it, because you're a principal, I do believe, then the teachers can't change it because you changed it in PowerSchool. PowerSchool trumps PowerTeacher for attendance. Okay, so that's partial day programming. If you are in a school that has meeting attendance or period attendance, then you would not use the AM and PM codes. You would use the XX not required. And if so, just everyone just switch their hats here for a second. Miranda's now in a school that does period attendance. Then what you would do is you would come here in the afternoon and you would put it in for each of the afternoons, saying that they're not required to attend for this period. This does not in a period attendance school, this does not represent the whole day. This just represents that period. So if we submit this now, it's going to look a little crazy here from Miranda, but you can get the idea of what it would look like. All right. So the next one would be for when school is closed for an unexpected event. So that would be for the following reasons. The main one is a snowstorm. Another one could be work stoppage. Let's say there's a strike. Another one could be infrastructure. The electricity goes out, so school's not open for that. So what we have to concern ourselves with would be only attendance values that had been entered in the future. If school's closed, nobody's going to be taking attendance on the day that school is closed, but there could be values in the background that were entered, say, on Monday because a parent called up and just said, oh, while I have you on the phone, Miranda has a dentist appointment on Thursday. So you go into Miranda's schedule, so you pick Miranda, you go to her attendance, and you click on the day that the father said, so he's, Thursday. A snowstorm in August. Work with me, folks. And the child's going to a medical appointment in the AM and dentist. And that was a future event that was entered in. So I submit that. And then it just so happens that was entered in on a Monday, but it's now a Thursday, and there was a snowstorm. You're back to school on Friday. We want to make sure that there are no values in the calendar in behind that school not in session. So we start on the start page, and we click on we grab all our students, and then under System Reports, we click on MB Reports, and then we run the period attendance by class report. And you run it for the day that that school was closed for. So it's all our kids, all our teachers. I'm in my daily school, so I'm I'm checking my home rooms, and I select the date that I'm looking for. So it would have been, say, yesterday, because we're back on a Friday, right? And you can show the comments or not show the comments. And it's going to list the students, if there were any. So I've run my report, and lo and behold, nobody had called in ahead to say their child would be absent on that day. You are now safe to go to the school calendar and set it to not be in session. And I did this once already, but I'll do it again. So remember, it was Thursday. We get rid of this. We get rid of this. Change that to 0. We don't have to touch the in-track sessions, and we can change this to weather, and we can put in a comment, and then you would click submit. If there were children that showed up on that list, then you would go to the start page, print off that list that you got from that report, and then you can just start going through them one at a time and set them back to present. It's not fair that if a child was suspended on that day and that counts as an absence on their report card. It's not fair. It's also not accurate. But school wasn't even open, and now we're saying you're going to be dinged on an absence on the day that we didn't even count. The report card does that. It actually counts an absence in the background even though the calendar's turned off. So we want to make sure that that's accurate as well too. How are we doing here, Lindsay?
Good. No questions.
No questions so far? Okay, awesome. So I've been telling everybody else who's attended these sessions, I think it's important to know you don't have to do these things immediately on the moment of this day. So if you're not sure what to do for the procedures for, say, modifying the attendance for because of a snowstorm, there's no reason why you can't just wait a little bit of time, send a help desk request into your SIS specialist, You can talk to your administrator. We're giving the documentation to everybody. In this link invite, there's also documentation there as well too that explains all about these different procedures. And if you're not sure about something, call somebody up. They'll link or send the help desk file. They'll call you up and they'll walk you through it to make sure that you've got it right. And because we're building some new skills here, and we just want to be patient and give everyone the opportunity to kind of think it through about what they're doing. Lindsay and I joke about this all the time. One of the things we find that works really well is when you're getting to the stage where you're changing students' attendance, like attendance changes like this, talking out loud really helps. What date do I want? What periods am I looking at? What codes am I scanning for? Maybe I only want a certain code, and which one am I, it sounds strange, but speaking out loud while you do these things really helps you hear it out loud and think it out loud so that you're doing the right thing. Because once you wipe out attendance, we cannot revert it back to the other attendance unless you had a copy of what it was before we did it. So just be very careful that you talk it through with people, and reach out for some support if you're not feeling comfortable with it. Any questions?
Todd has a question. Are casual admin assistants being trained in this?
Todd, it's funny you should ask that, because I had an AA from West ask me the same question, and to my knowledge, that would be a plan that the district would do. Although I did mention that I would bring it up with Lindsay's boss, Jean-Guy, to talk about that with the SIS specialist to see what can be done around that, because you're absolutely right. That's kind of like a hole in the net right there. If we don't have everybody doing the same thing, then the data could be off. So you bring up an excellent point. Thank you.
And we are recording the session too, Todd. So there'll be, you're thinking YouTube, right, Alistair?
Yes.
If you have a casual, that you can refer them to watch that as well.
That's right. I've made the channel. First time I've ever done that. And once I've rendered these videos, I'll be rendering them all after I'm all done, and I'll probably be rendering them on Tuesday next week, and then I'll be sending them all out to the SIS and to the PEDS and to your data and accountability people to be shared with everyone, so that if they just want to go back and watch it again, they can watch it again, or they can watch a different one, because sometimes there are different questions being asked. Just a little note here for the people from East. Kathy Poplar asked me to show you this, that on this has to do, if I pick a student and I go to their additional information page, there is the media check button right here. Kathy asked me to mention that there are 3 questions that are asked on the media release form. If all 3 of them have been approved by the parent, then you can click this off right here to say that everything has been approved. If, say, only two of the 3 have been approved and not the third one, it should not be clicked off. So this is when all 3 have been agreed upon, and then you click submit. There is a report that you can run on the start page under system reports, MB reports. Down here under student listings, you'll see student permissions, and you can run the report for the particular field. This will tell you the students that do have the form, and then you can run that. I ran it by the whole school, so but you can also run it by grade levels or by homerooms. And if you run it by homeroom, then you can give it to the teachers and say, here are the kids that are allowed to be in the pictures for certain things. And then you can we won't be in violation of our TIPA things and stuff like that. The last thing I'd like to show you is our PowerSchool Playbook page, which is on the one page. And if you scroll down here on the left-hand side under PS for PowerSchool, you'll see PowerSchool Playbook. And we've designed this page so that you can filter it by your audience, your level, the month, and also the category. So if you go, let's say your AAs are at the K-8 level and you're wondering what documents and videos there are for attendance, it automatically filters down here at the bottom into any document that's on these following topics. If there's one that you're looking for that is not there, you can please email me. I will make the document, I will post it, and depending on the topic, some of them work really well for making a video. You'll see there's videos right here. Some of them are like, I would not want to make a video for what we just talked about here in terms of all the steps. It would just be too long and too cumbersome, so the document is the best thing to use. And there's all kinds of other things in here for different types of things as well too. That is the end of my presentation, and I put out to you, all of you, do any of you have any questions? Lindsay, is there anything you'd like to add in there?
I think you did a great job, Alistair.
Thank you. You're welcome, Rebecca. And if any of you are kind of like me, sometimes I don't know the question until I'm like, the next day, or you just hung up and you went, shoot, I should have asked that. Please don't hesitate to email your SIS, your PED lead, myself. The SIS will go to Lindsay, just so you know. So emailing Lindsay won't help because the SIS reach out to her if they don't know the answer anyway. Are you touching base with any of the new information in attendance for our new Safer for Parents to call into? Do I understand that, Donna? Our meaning, does what I presented here align with the Safe Arrival system? Oh, yeah, okay, that's good. Yeah, and all the attendance measures that we're doing right now do not impact on the messenger system. The messenger system just looks at the codes, and we didn't change any of the codes that apply because they really just call the parents when they are unexplained absences, right? So that's what the trigger. Have I answered your question?
Not really.
Donna, I'm going to unmute you, okay? And I'll let you speak. Go ahead. Are you there, Donna? Oh, maybe you can hear but not speak.
Joanne, while we're trying to figure out, Donna, I can answer your question. Is the next session starting at 2:30 the same as this one, or different info? The next session is more related to meeting attendance or period attendance for those schools, basically mostly high schools in Anglophone West that would be doing that, 9 to 12 schools.
I'm just looking at Donna's information here. Okay, Donna, you're at Bessborough. I will reach out to you, and you and I can have a little chat. Sound good? Excellent. All right, folks, 2:14. I have to get ready for the next session in 15 minutes. I wish you all an absolute fantastic school year and a long weekend. And I wish you have a great, smooth startup. Lindsay, I want to thank you very much for helping out. It's great. Again, you've done a wonderful job.
Not a problem.
Have a great
weekend, everyone. Thank you. Excellent presentation. Thank you, Joan.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. Okay, I'm going to stop. The recording now.